Welcome once again, and thank you all for staying with us here tonight on NTV Weekend Edition on Talk of the Nation. Following the release of the latest edition of the primary living examination results yesterday, schools have been looking at ways in which they can survive as learning institutions in these dire circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, one of the ways of teaching that has gained currency in learning institutions over the lockdown period is online learning. So tonight we want to understand it better, and this is why in our studios we do have Mr. NIYITEGEKA, who is the Program Director of REFACTORY, just to pick his thoughts on his experience of online learning and what are the available solutions as we go forward in order to see that the country continues to see its young people attain education. A very good evening, Mr. NIYITEGEKA. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Talk of the Nation.
Good evening, Sandra. How are you? A pleasure for me to be part of the conversation.
Well, I'm very well, and I do want to start by picking your thoughts maybe as a parent. What is your experience of online learning in learning institutions? Have you experienced it? Do you feel it is an effective way of seeing that young people attain education?
As a parent, I would say, we have two children who are currently going through online learning, and I can say it is better than nothing. It's better than having children sit at home without anything that is engaging them. So we've seen from the first time the whole online learning started to now, there's been a lot of improvement. And I guess that's what was expected, that the teachers, but also the school administration keeps on evolving, because at the time when we started, we were all just, trying to beat about whatever was there. So there's been a lot of improvement, and I can tell the effort that the teachers are putting in. I can also tell the way the children have quickly adapted to the realities of the time, that's what they're going to interact with and work with. So yes, I'm pretty pleased with the outcomes so far, or the experience so far.
Now, for parents out there that are watching us this evening, there's a lot comes with online learning, the different distractions. For instance, also seeing young people or the pupils, the students seated on a computer for longer hours. From your own perspective, how have you dealt with the different distractions that come with online learning?
I guess, so it's really about setting the expectations, getting the children to know that, yes, whereas they're not in class with a controlled environment, for them to appreciate the fact that that is what class is, and minimize as much as possible their distractions. So are you in a space that allows you to concentrate and focus on the class? And of course, you can, if you have the space, if you have the resources, it makes it easy. But if you're confined, it can also be extremely inconveniencing. So the key thing is really the messaging. We've had an opportunity to have a conversation with the children and say, look, when you're in class, you're in class. When they give you an opportunity to go for a break, that's when you're able to do a couple of other things that you could ordinarily have done. And as much as possible, try to instill that discipline. We're at a point where we don't need to supervise. We're at a point where they can do it on their own and they have that level of comfort. So I guess it takes time, and we have to be very conscious with the children to appreciate that it's a whole learning experience. They are learning, and it's not easy. And for the parents, I also would say, don't be too hard on yourselves, because you can't, your home cannot just translate or transform into a class or a school. And so work as much as you can with what.
We sort of lost Mr. Michael NIYITEGEKA on that, but we're still talking about online learning. I do hope we can still get a hold of him. But the bigger question with the general population as the country battles COVID-19, what are some of the different initiatives, strategies that we can look at to see that education continues for the young people? We are seeing double senior ones, what happens to them, and a lot of these different things are happening, and we want to understand how do we move ahead from now on. Mr. Michael, I do believe that we need NIYITEGEKA. I believe we can still get hold of you. We're still talking about how you dealt with online learning with your children, but also we know that there are learners who may need extra attention, you know, and you have parents who are busy doing different categories of things. How do they then navigate that?
Okay, so the first thing is that you're on a learning journey as a parent, also with your children, and so you're both learning and getting to know about this experience. You cannot. The initial stages were a little bit difficult because you had to literally be present to supervise and get everything set. But it was not easy. With home connections, with power outages, and all the things really made it a little bit difficult for children, but also for parents. It was quite hard on them. And so one of the things I would guide any parent is that don't be too hard on yourself. Everybody is on a learning journey, is on a learning curve. Number two is that work with what you have to as much as you can. And then number three, it is okay. That when things fail, there will be tomorrow. And I guess for me, that really helped in a number of circumstances to help the children also to realize that it's not the end of the world when things don't work out.
What about the aspect of internet, for instance? That is a concern of many. If we are looking at online learning as something that we have to carry forward, the aspect of internet from your own perspective, how can it be navigated to see that every single parent can at least access internet?
Sandra, that is a big challenge. One thing that really the pandemic brought to the forefront is how the planning process for different service providers really had not paid attention to the home, let's say the home connections or even home deliveries, if I could put it that way. So it was very easy for you to navigate and direct somebody to deliver something to your office. But then you quickly realize that delivering something to your home is not very easy. So internet was one of those things that we hardly had any effort or significant investment towards home connections. Now, many of us quickly realized that our mobile phone data bundles are not sustainable. It was just becoming too expensive. You load a bundle that you used to use in a month, it is done within a week. And it hasn't changed much. The unfortunate bit is it hasn't changed much. Connections that are not bundled haven't really penetrated the widespread of the greater Kampala or even the greater country. So that is an area that still needs a lot of improvement. And so a lot of people are still struggling with the bundles. And now with even that tax that has come in, that is even going to make it even more expensive, it's an area that I think as a parent was not well thought through. And even as we talk about online learning, it's something that government ought to look at and create an incentive structure for the telecos or the internet service providers to really invest in home connections as quickly as possible. I guess there is an opportunity, and it's important that something is done. Otherwise, it's a very expensive venture. Let me say this, that to an extent, you look at your internet cost vis-a-vis the school fees that you're paying, you could almost be paying a little bit more if you're using, let's say, the mobile bundles than your school fees at the end of, let's say, a 3-month term, if that were the case. And that is untenable. It's not feasible for majority of the people in this country.
All right, as we conclude our conversation this evening, we would also like to hear your thoughts on, if you were to recommend to different school operators to parents, would you say at this point in time with the current situation, we should all be focusing on making online learning better and possible for different people? Would you say that, or do you have other recommendations on how we can see that education system in Uganda actually carries on?
Sandra, I work with a team at Refactory, and when the pandemic hit in March 20, when they closed us in 2020, we do a learning program. And if it were not for the online capability, we probably wouldn't be in business now. We would have closed by now. I can say it's been a savior. So
Right.
we need to look at how it can work for us in the different contexts. There will be places where online learning may not be possible, and we need to find something else. We need to think about what we call a blended learning or a blended approach. And so I would say the entities at the Ministry of Education, or the technocrats and the different players, need to start, and I think we could be even missing an opportunity for us to learn, fail, learn, and improve in terms of the way we're doing the things that we're doing. And so if I were in a position of decision making, I would say let's go forth, let's try it out, let's invest resources in it. And the more we do it, the higher the chances that we will probably learn and pick from it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Michael NIYITEGEKA, joining us tonight and sharing with us his thoughts on online learning. He is the Program Director, REFACTORY, but also a parent that has had his children go through this online learning process. Thank you as well for joining us on NTV Weekend Edition. We'll take a short break and we'll be back with more stories.